that if they are not going to succeed, they at least are going to try. And that in itself will wreak havoc on this country.
Okay, you know what else is wreaking havoc on this country? This hurricane. So let's take a quick break. Hurricane Helene, it is about to officially make landfall in Florida. It is extremely dangerous. This thing is a Category 4. I want to bring in my colleague, Jesse Kirsch from Perry, Florida. Jesse, what can you tell us?
Hey, Stephanie. So we are in the eye wall of Helene right now. We are seconds away, if not experiencing landfall right now. I can tell you that we have had intermittent moments of really powerful gusts, and we're getting some right now again. Whistling inside the hotel as well. Okay, this is some of the strong, and I want to point out, I don't know if you can even see it off in the distance, but there are cars out here. I can tell you first responders have been saying at 45-mile-per-hour winds, they were not going to be on the roads anymore. So anyone who is out here, presumably not a first responder, and should not be out on the roads. These winds are really picking up right now. We got some debris flying. We're going back inside. Guys, we're going to head back in. Stay with us, Stephanie, if you want. We're going to head back in right now. There's some debris that's flying now. We're getting back inside. The eye is going to be coming to us any moment now.
All right, Jesse, you get back inside. Be safe.
Go, go, go. Stephanie, I don't know if you can still hear me. Are you still with us?
I can't see you, but I can hear you, Jesse. So give us some more info.
Okay, yep, we just locked the door. Okay.
You just lost the what?
Okay, we're good. We're inside now. We just had to get that door locked. That's what we're dealing with. That is incredibly powerful. Okay, we're good. Smell some gas from outside. Okay, we're okay. Our team's good. If you're still with us, Stephanie, we're good.
We're with you.
Just again, there are cars out there. They should not be out there.
Hold on, those cars out there.
Category 4 hurricane.
Are people in those cars?
Yeah. They were moving, and I'm seeing a vehicle backing up right now. There are people driving on the roads. And I can tell you that they had asked for mandatory evacuations here in Taylor County. The sheriff had told me earlier he thought about 10,000 of the 20,000 people here had not heeded those warnings, including potentially around 200 people who live in coastal low-lying areas where the storm surge could be reaching 20 feet. And I don't know if you can hear the wind howling, but I mean, you can hear the wind howling through the windows, through the glass, and we have stuff prepared in an internal room, because what we're dealing with this kind of wind is effectively like having a tornado overhead for over an hour. When you have that kind of wind force over a prolonged period of time, and you can hear me out of breath, this is not easy to be walking through. If you have wind like that for a prolonged period of time, that can weaken structures. And just going back to about the coastal areas, it's about 200 people, the sheriff says, he estimates as many as 200 people who may not have evacuated from coastal areas where the storm surge could be getting up to 20 feet. That is unfathomable. And I can tell you that officials here told people bluntly, with their warnings about evacuations, they asked people who were not going to evacuate from Taylor County that they should be writing their name, their date of birth, and other information about themselves on their body in permanent marker so that they could be identified after this storm. That is what we're dealing with here. And again, I'm still seeing vehicles out there on the road. Something seems to have a flickering light, so I'm hoping that might be a first responder of some kind. But there are definitely people who have chosen, it seems, to stay in these communities, which we often talk about in these storms. And the headlines that we have in the days after can often be quite grim. But I can tell you right now, as we're waiting for landfall, and again, it might have come through. I'm going to check my phone because I've been texting with our climate team. We are, this is now the third hurricane I've covered in a matter of weeks. No question, this is the most powerful. And also the other thing to note, this area has been hit now with 3 hurricanes in a matter of about a year, 13 months. And this one is demonstrably stronger. And that's one of the things that I'm picking up from talking to people out here is they've seen storms before. This is a different kind of storm, and this is not something to be playing around with in terms of deciding whether or not to evacuate. So hopefully many people heeded those warnings. We'll send it back to you in New York there.
Did you speak to people today who said, we're just going to stay put, we don't think it's going to be so bad?
So we were here yesterday, here again today, and just anecdotally, someone we met who was working at a restaurant that we were able to get food at before everything shut down, and I asked him on his way out if he was going to be leaving town. He said he was planning to stay. He's going to ride it out. And I said, you should really consider leaving. And he told me he was staying because his grandma was going to stay and he was going to be with her. We got her on the phone and, tried to convey as much as we could that this is a different kind of storm. And they told us then that they were changing their plans and going to leave. And I hope, more people had those kinds of decisions throughout the day. And by the way, I just checked with our climate team, Aaron from our climate team, no landfall yet. So we're still waiting for official word on that. But, you know, it's close to the coastline if it's not there yet. But, yeah, Stephanie, to answer your question, there are people who I think were planning to stay here, or multiple people were planning to stay here. The gas station across the street from where we were. And the person who was working there told our team that they were going to stay open and continue to be there. The lights eventually went off over there. But, yeah, this happens, you know, whenever we're coming in storms. There are people who don't plan to evacuate. And then there are people who learn the lessons from previous storms. I met someone at a sandbagging location who had stayed during Hurricane Debbie, which was earlier, and that was a Category 1, borderline Category 2, if my memory serves me correctly. But that was a much, you know, weaker storm in terms of wind strength, and that scared that man enough that he decided he was leaving town this time and never going to take chances again. Hopefully more people had experiences like that.
All right, Jesse, I don't know the name of that person you met in the restaurant or his grandmother. I'm assuming you do. So please say a prayer for both of them tonight. Stay safe. We're going to check in with you later in the hour. We're thinking about you and your crew. Thank you for being down there. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's head back to my team up here. John Allen, VP Harris met with Hurricane Helene has just made landfall on Florida's coast as a Category 4. For the latest on the ground, let's go to Tallahassee, where my colleague Kathy Park is standing by. Kathy, what are you seeing right now?
Stephanie, well, we have been waiting all day, all evening for a possible direct hit from Helene, but we have just learned that we have narrowly missed the eye wall of this storm, but we're still feeling the impacts. As you can see, we're getting these heavy bands of rain. This is probably the worst conditions we have seen so far. The winds have started to pick up as well. Here in Tallahassee, Stephanie, really the big concern going into the storm was the possibility, the extreme wind damage, because there are so many trees in this area. Roughly 55% of the city is under tree canopy, and officials were worried at what 100-mile-per-hour winds could do if it stayed in this area for an extended period of time. So they were concerned about toppled trees, down power lines, which would ultimately lead to prolonged power outages. Now, earlier today, we actually went to an emergency shelter nearby. Several of them opened in this area. A lot of folks were utilizing them throughout the day. And really, no one should be out in these conditions right now because, like I said, this is probably the worst we have seen it. Here in Tallahassee, officials have been preparing days in advance of this storm, and they were worried that this was going to be a possible direct hit, which would have been the worst storm that the region has ever seen in its history. Unprecedented. Obviously, the coast is not clear just yet. Once again, the rain is really coming down. We have actually seen some transformers explode behind us. We're hearing all sorts of noises. So we're not out of the woods just yet. But tomorrow, when the light comes out and, you know, we have daybreak and the folks are out here kind of assessing the damage, we know thousands of crews are at the ready. They're leaning on resources pretty much from all across the country. But once again, Tallahassee, we were bracing for a direct hit, but it appears we have just missed the eye wall, Steph.
Kathy, that is good news. Stay safe where you are, and we'll be keeping an eye on this storm. But now let's turn to the 2024 presidential race. The New York Times